Bonjour, je m'appelle Temo et je vous souhaite la bienvenue à la web radio du lycée français international d'Amman. Nous avons le plaisir d'accueillir Monsieur Laith El-Mahrabi, écologiste jordanien. Nous voudrions l'interviewer par rapport à la journée mondiale du 5 juin 2019. Cette année, le colloque se déroulera en Chine sur le thème de la pollution de l'air. Nous souhaiterons mieux connaître les problèmes de la pollution et pour ceci, nous demanderons des éclairages à Monsieur Laith El-Mahrabi, fervent écologiste de Jordanie qui participe activement à la préservation de l'environnement et à l'éducation. Cette interview se fera en 3 langues, français, anglais, arabe, pour tous nos auditeurs.
Bonjour Monsieur El-Mahrabi, je m'appelle Noah. Merci d'avoir accepté notre invitation à la web radio du LFIA. Pouvez-vous vous présenter et parler un peu de vous et de vos motivations en tant qu'écologiste et ce qui vous a motivé à le devenir?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to come here and talk to you, to all of you. Well, I started like a lot of the kids, loving animals, enjoying to play with animals and watch them on TV, and then I used to read a lot when I was a kid, and that's how I got to love environment and nature more and more. And then I studied biology at the university, which was my choice as a start to start working in ecology. We had a few courses at the university on ecology, but then when I started my training and my professional life, that's when I thought, I tried a few things. I worked in a laboratory, I worked in nature conservation, in field research, and that's when I thought, okay, this is the thing that I want to do for the rest of my life. So I've been doing it for about 23 years now, and I don't think I'll be doing something else. So I'm really enjoying it, and it's very nice to have the opportunity not to just work inside rooms, but also to go out and enjoy open air and nature and wildlife.
Hello, Mr. El-Mahrabi. I am Kareem, and I am curious to discuss how, given your work as an ecologist in Jordan for the past 20 years, what have you seen change immensely when it comes to biodiversity and other environmental issues here?
Well, over the past 20 years, a lot of good things and bad things happened. The good things mainly is that people have become more aware about nature and the importance of nature for human beings and the importance of clean environment for our livelihoods. That was the good thing that was happening. When I started working, few people knew about nature conservation, and people used to joke about it. When you tell somebody that you work in nature conservation, you tell them, what do you do? Are you a lizard or a tree? What do you exactly do as nature conservation? Because nature is out there and it doesn't need any protection. And now this has changed over the past 20 years. You can see that people are becoming more interested in nature conservation and asking about it. And for example, 20 years ago, you wouldn't be having an interview with an ecologist in Jordan. A school wouldn't be inviting an ecologist to talk about the nature conservation. So that's the good side. Let's say the negative side has been mainly is that the pressure on environment has still increased. Although more people are becoming aware of the importance of it, but still populations are increasing, they're everywhere. Development of cities, they're growing, the urbanization is going everywhere. Amman used to be much, much smaller than what it is now 20 years ago. And so the pressure is more. And that is the balance that the people that like us who work in nature conservation are always worried about, is trying to create this balance between nature itself and the pressures that are on it. So in general, in Jordan and on the global scale, the pressures are still increasing. They haven't decreased in any way. They have been increasing. Sometimes the increase has been slow. In the past 20 years, they've been increasing a bit more. Now the increase is slower, but still the pressure is there. And that's why not only nature conservationists like me or ecologists should be caring about this. It's a responsibility for everyone.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Nathan et j'aimerais que vous nous parliez des espèces menacées. En Jordanie, le vautour moine a souvent été sur la liste des espèces menacées. Vous êtes un spécialiste des oiseaux et plus particulièrement du vautour moine. Pouvez-vous nous expliquer ce qui est fait en Jordanie et au Moyen-Orient pour la protection de l'espèce?
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting question. Yes, I've been working in bird conservation and bird research for almost most of the past 20 years. And the pressure is there. There are numbers that are decreasing. Vultures have been decreasing a lot over the past, not just 20 years, but for the past 100 years. For example, the Cinereus vulture, which is not very common in Jordan, but has been decreasing. It was only recorded 2 or 3 times in the past 100 years. There are other species that are also decreasing, not just by chance. They've been decreasing again because of urbanization and the human expansion. So griffin vultures, which is relatively speaking, the most common species of vultures in Jordan, it used to breed just around Amman, very close to where the school is actually. It used to breed just a bit to the west of it, to the west part of Amman. Now it doesn't exist there anymore. And now there is only one colony, while in the past it used to be 4 times the size of what it is now. Now there are around 10 pairs, so 20 birds in total that are breeding. But now, that's now. And before that there were a few colonies all along the mountains of Jordan. So the pressure is there. And the main reason for that is human activities and the expansion of human activities. Also Egyptian vultures, who are also common in Europe and Africa and in Jordan, they are also decreasing. They used to breed in Jordan, now they don't breed here anymore. But on the other side, on the brighter side, there is a lot of work that has been done to get those birds back to breed in the country and to be more common. Just to give you an example, because some of those species are migratory species, so it's not enough to work on them only in Jordan or in Turkey or in Egypt. You need to work on much more than a national scale, because this, for example, the Egyptian vultures, they mainly breed in Central Europe, so in the Balkans, in Bulgaria and in Serbia and in Turkey, and they migrate all the way down across West Asia, like in Jordan, Syria, Jordan, then go south all the way to Africa, where they winter sometimes in Arabia, in Saudi Arabia, in Yemen, in Oman, or they go all the way down to South Africa and Ethiopia and Kenya. So you cannot just conserve them in Europe and say, okay, everything is okay and we have conserved Egyptian vultures, because if they do, they go on their journey and they might have a lot of pressure in other parts of the world. The pressure, again, has been mainly human. A lot of it has been with poisoning, shooting. Another issue that people didn't talk about a lot in the past, but now it's becoming more and more serious, especially that, again, human expansion is increasing, is electrocution. Birds get electrocuted by the wires, by the electricity wires, and that's becoming also a very serious issue. And now, the people who know Europe very well, that there is a lot of electricity in Europe, in Africa. It's not still widespread as it is in Europe, but now it's increasing, and so the pressure is still increasing on those birds. So what we do a lot of research at the very beginning so that we understand what's happening and to pinpoint what are the problems that need to be solved. And then we try to work on as much as possible on a large scale, which we call a flyway scale. The flyway is where the birds are moving. And then from this flyway scale, we go to the local scale. So if we have a problem, for example, in Jordan, we work in, I don't know if you heard about Dana or Ma'an in the south, where we know that Egyptian vultures, for example, spend some time of their winter. And in Bulgaria, we have specific places where we work on. So we try to deal with case studies along the flyway scale, but also on the local scale. Because at the end of the day, what's important is the local scale, is the impact on the ground, and not just, talking about it just in general and doing research without doing real action on the ground. So a lot of work still needs to be done, but there are amazing stories that we still coming to understand. And that's one of the interesting thing about working in nature, because people, for example, people like me who've been working in this for 20 years, and we barely know anything, really. When you look at it and when you look about what's happening in the world, the birds, every time if you watch a documentary on TV, you would see something new, because we're still discovering new things. And we barely understand how this whole system on Earth works. It's a very complicated system that we're still scratching the surface, if you can say, and still learning about it. So there is a lot to be learned to be able to find solutions.
Monsieur Al-Moharabi, je suis heureuse de vous recevoir dans notre studio d'enregistrement de la web radio du LFIA. Nous avons beaucoup vu et entendu les interventions de la jeune activiste suédoise Greta Thunberg concernant l'environnement. Que conseillez-vous aux jeunes de Jordanie pour changer nos comportements au quotidien et éviter un changement climatique?
Well, Greta has been an inspiration not only for young people. She's been an inspiration for, all ages, including myself. And, reading about her, seeing her, making her speeches, she's raising the urgency to act. And it became very inspiring for me at least, on a personal level. It came for two reasons. First of all, is that it comes from a young girl who sees that the future is hers, the future is yours, as young people, not ours. And that's the very strong message that she's been talking about. And the second point is that the message itself is a very clear message. It's not a political message. It's not just, a blah, blah, blah message. It's a very strong message talking about the responsibility of humankind and humanity to Earth. And, of course, climate change. So I'm a big fan of Greta, but at the same time, this message Greta on her own is not enough. When she started her movement, it started with her on her own, standing in front of the Swedish parliament on her own, holding this banner talking about climate change. And now it's a global movement. And for Jordanians, I'm not sure if there were any activities in that aspect, but I would definitely encourage it, for the simple reason the future world is not only for Greta, it's not only for Swedish girls or for Swedish students, it's not only for Egyptians, or it's for everybody. It's for you guys that are living here. You're all also from different nationalities, living in a specific part of the world, but we're all living together. And you people at your age have the responsibility to raise, the flag, let's say, and do what Greta has been doing in Sweden and carry it on here. Well, we're not encouraging strikes at schools, but it's about the message. It's not about we want to miss school. We want to go on strike and stop going to school. No, this is not the message. And that's what Greta has been clarifying all along. It's not about that I don't want to study. No, we all need education and we all need to study. It's about raising the message to politicians, because we're not the decision makers. I'm not a decision maker. You're not decision makers, but we want to influence the people who make decisions to take climate change seriously and not just talk about it in theory. Talking in theory is very easy, but talking and making an impact is the most important thing at this time that we are in, and it's very dangerous. The time that we're living in is becoming more and more urgent for us to act, to make action, to make words transferred into action. And I think Greta made a very good start, and she needs the help of all the kids in the world, including the kids that are living in Jordan.
Hello, my name is Filippo, and I'm wondering what local or regional organization that our school Alafia could work with and perhaps become partners with when it comes to reducing our waste, conserving water, and overall environmental awareness within our school community.
Well, there are lots of organizations that are there that can be helpful in that. I think for a start, the best approach to do is to check what is happening on the ground with the national organizations. You don't need to start big. You have to start small and see what are the actual activities that are happening on the ground. As far as I know, I think LFEA has done an agreement, I think last year or the year before, with RSCN, the Royal Society for the Conservation of Nature. And you had another agreement or partnership with the Jordan Society for Marine Conservation, I think. So that's a good start. They do nature conservation activities, but they do also a lot of cleanup activities. The guys who are at Jared's, the Marine Conservation Organization, they do a lot of cleaning in Aqaba, but also along the coast, not just in the sea. RSN has been doing a lot of cleanup campaigns with other organizations. So I would encourage you or the Alafia to work with the national organizations. Jordan Environment Society is a very active also society when it comes to recycling and also cleanup campaigns, which could be very helpful in raising awareness and also making, turning, as we said just in the previous question, in the previous answer, turning words into action, doing things on the ground.
أهلا وسهلا، أنا اسمي أحمد وأنا أردني مثل 40% من طلاب المدرسة الفرنسية في عمان. كيف يمكننا إحداث التغيير في بيتنا، خاصة بتعليم والدينا أن يكونوا مسؤولين عن البيئة وأن يكونوا حذرين؟
I think the best thing is that you're all, first of all, I'm very glad again to be here talking to people of your age who are feeling responsible to do such activities on the ground. I think, as I said, over the past 20 years, the people who used to try to make a change were much fewer. People, when I was at your age, talking about environment or caring about animals or all of that, people didn't take it seriously. Now there is a strong movement. Greta is a very good model again. And I think your role now is becoming crucial in educating maybe your parents in one way, because education is a two-way approach, but again also your fellow students and your friends about cleaning up and being let's say friendly to environment. I keep on talking about cleaning up and keeping things clean because that's your responsibility in your environment that you are living in. We're all living in, most probably all of us live in Amman, so our responsibility is mainly about our house and our neighborhood and the area around us and our school. So you would need, first of all, to try and influence the people who are around you. How to do that? Of course, the best way to do it is by making them aware about it. Presentations, we can help in that. Maybe talk about figures, about the impact that pollution is doing to the world. And I'm talking here, let's say, not just pollution. Let's say, take an example again about plastic. Most of the people that you would go to, especially in the past, now it's becoming a bit better, but in the past when you go to somebody and you tell them, why are you throwing this on the ground? And he said, come on, I'm not the only one. This is not going to make Amman dirty or cleaner. Dirtier or cleaner. It's just a piece of plastic. That's the excuse that you would get from people. But the change should come when you're a bigger number. You can make an influence and educate people that this really makes a difference. That plastic, for example, takes a very long time to biodegrade, and then we'll all be living surrounded by garbage. The other thing that is also very important, that each one of us can make a difference. And again, I'm very glad that you mentioned Greta in your questions, and one person can really make a difference. It started with one, and now the movement is much bigger than one person. It's a global movement. And if you believe in that, then a change could be coming soon, inshallah.
Hello, Mr. Morhabi. I am Gabriel, and I would like to ask you about the theme air pollution for this year's World Environment Day. I understand that you are an ecologist and I am not working with air quality, but is air pollution indeed a factor here in Jordan? If not a particular one, is there an area of pollution, whether it is plastic, recycling, or just waste, that you feel needs to be discussion and addressed?
Yeah, I think in general, air pollution is not really a major issue in Jordan, relatively speaking. If you compare it to other areas that are more polluted and more populated in the world, we're okay, we're good. I think there are more urgent issues that needs to be dealt with. And going back to plastic is a major issue, and it needs to be solved really soon. The good thing, again, there is nothing that's black and white. There are goods and there is good stuff and bad stuff everywhere. The good thing in Jordan is that legally, by law, plastic bags should be banned. So by law, it's there. It's written in the law. It just needs implementation. And it needs people to lead on it. Implementation would need enforcement. That's not your responsibility. But your responsibility is to be a good model to show that it can be done. And there are many parts of the world where plastic now has been banned. I'm sure you've heard about this now. In Kenya, which is in Africa, where people say, oh, Africa, it's nobody cares about the environment or whatever. In Kenya, plastic is completely banned. You cannot have a plastic bag. If you're traveling to Kenya, you cannot even have a plastic bag coming with you on the plane. Imagine how strict it is and how doable it can be. It is doable. It's not something impossible. How are we going to live without plastic? Well, people can live without plastic. People who lived in maybe outside, maybe in Europe, can relate to that. Where in some places where plastic, you use your regular bag all the time. That you're using it all the time, right? Your shopping bag, rather than having a plastic bag every time you buy an ice cream from the supermarket. So it is doable, and the law is there. It's all about enforcement from one side, from the government, but it's also about you becoming responsible to make a change, encouraging it, not to use it. Again, it comes with time. 15 years ago or 20 years ago, when I used to go to the supermarket and buy something and I would say, no, I don't need a plastic bag, the guy at the supermarket would be a bit annoyed. He said, why do you don't want a plastic bag? I'm giving you this to carry your stuff, and you say no. But now people are starting to understand more. They're starting to understand that, okay, you care about nature, and they start to respect that. The more people do it, the message will get louder and clearer, and it will be distributed to more people. So it all, again, it starts with each one of you to be very responsible about that and say, okay, from now on, I'm not going to use plastic bags. Let's start with plastic bags. I'm not saying to stop using plastic at all, but just plastic bags. And that will make a very big difference. For the people of you or who had the chance to go outside Amman and see Jordan, Jordan is such a, it's not, maybe I'm biased, but Jordan is really a beautiful country. But there are so many parts of it that are just, I would say, injured or damaged because of plastic. You would go to some places that are so beautiful, and it's only damaged by the presence of some plastic bags here and there. If you've been to Ram or Dana or Mujab, these are really the Dead Sea, the lowest point on earth. It's just a beautiful landscape, but sometimes it gets damaged just by stuff like that. And again, it is doable to control it and avoid this for the sake of all of us.
Monsieur El-Marhabi, nous vous remercions sincèrement d'avoir pris de votre temps pour répondre à nos questions au sein de la web radio du LFIA. Je m'appelle Jules et je sais très bien que nous commençons à peine à alerter les élèves, les jeunes de l'école, mais aussi autour de nous sur le réchauffement climatique. J'espère que ces interventions orales se transformeront en actions concrètes sur le terrain et dans la vie de tous les jours. C'est aussi grâce à des gens comme vous, écologistes, scientifiques et professionnels de l'environnement, que les bonnes actions seront immédiatement appliquées pour éviter une dégradation trop rapide de notre environnement. Merci infiniment, Monsieur El-Marhabi. Nous espérons continuer cette discussion à la rentrée prochaine pour constater les changements dans les comportements tant à l'école que notre vie quotidienne. Merci et à bientôt.
Well, thank you again for the third time. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really glad to be here and to talk to you, all of you. And I hope that our talk will turn into action in the future. Thank you very much.